Hello everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Guillermo, Carla. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to be here for this webinar today. We will give some time for the people to join. More and more people are joining, so maybe we can wait just 15 seconds to allow more people to arrive before I start the webinar.
Perfect for me. Thank you so much for organizing this.
Thank
we
you.
have to spur just the people to come into our webinar.
Thank you very much, Carla. Okay, I think we can start. People can keep joining while we are starting. And again, thank you for joining us for this webinar. My name is Giulia Malafarina, and I'm EU Project Officer at the European Heat Pump Association. And in today's webinar titled EU Regulatory Landscape for Thermal Energy Storage, we will dive into the policy framework shaping the adoption of the thermal energy storage solution and their role in the energy transition. Thanks to our speaker, we will have the comprehensive overview of thermal energy storage solution from 3 different perspectives. So the EU policy, the engineering perspective, and the legal research. But before start, I will give you some housekeeping rule. As you can see, you cannot activate your microphone and camera during the webinar, but I encourage you to write down all your questions in the chat, both during the presentation and at the end during the question and answer section. Just please remember to include the name of the person you are addressing the question to in the chat so they can manage to reply you better. And please note that the webinar is recorded, and the recording of the webinar as well as the presentation of the speaker will be available for you we'll send it to you by email in the next days. Now let me go quickly through the agenda. We will have 3 presentations today. The first from Thomas Schlecker, sorry for my bad pronunciation, from the European Commission, and he will present the European viewpoint on thermal energy storage research and innovation, following by Guillermo Andrés Nieto from Veolia, Spain, that will highlight the regulatory constraint in integrating the thermal energy storage technologies. And finally, Carla Zambrano from UNISAR will discuss the key role of TES in addressing energy poverty. As you know, this webinar is organized in collaboration with the TES Cluster, the Thermal Energy Storage Cluster, and so let me do a brief introduction of the 4 EU projects that are part of it. I'm seeing in the chat that some people have a problem in seeing the presentation. Someone else cannot see the presentation I'm sharing, or you all can see it?
I can see it very well.
Okay. Someone yes, someone cannot. So, well, I will try to check my colleague Sofia will try to check if there are some problem with the availability of the presentation. But I see the majority can see it, so maybe it's a problem of connection. Well, again, Sofia will try to solve it, and I will go on with the presentation of the projects that are part of the TES cluster. They are 4 founded under the same call. The first is ECO. ECO is a 4-year EU project that will develop and demonstrate a new modular thermal energy storage. The result of the project will be an innovative, compact, and smart TES solution based on the use and optimization of thermochemical materials, combined with phase change material for space heating, cooling, and hot tap water production. Then we have BESS storage that will develop and demonstrate long and short-term high energy density storage solution in 4 different demo cases around Europe. And this includes a thermochemical, compact, and efficient seasonal storage technology, plus 2 concepts with phase change material and vacuum insulated water storage for shifting peak load demand in cold and warm application. The third is HYSTORE, that has the mission to develop and validate an innovative set of thermal energy storage concepts based on the combination of cutting-edge technologies components as only one phase change material solution, low temperature PCM heating and cooling solution, PCM heating solution, and thermochemical material heating and cooling solution. And last but not least, ThumbsUp, that aim to overcome the limitation of existing building integrated technologies, demonstrating a test solution at daily and weekly level to be easily integrated in different types of U building, increase the energy efficiency, and exploit PTH approach to make U buildings as grid flexibility actors. During the project, the PCM and the TCM innovative solution will be also developed from the design phase to the implementation stage. But I think I spoke even too much, and now it's time to give the floor to the real protagonist of today's. So let me introduce our first speaker. Hopefully he was able to join, because I think at the beginning he has some trouble to join us. So if you are here, let me know. Okay, he's here. So I will just do a brief introduction of our first speaker, Thomas Schlecker. Thomas worked as policy officer at the European Commission, Director General for Research and Innovation in the field of bioenergy, renewable fuels, hydropower, and energy system and storage, where he contributes to the development and implementation of relevant research and innovation policies, programs, and action for the clean energy transition. He also chairs the Commission Internal Technical Expert Inter-Service Group of the JRC Biomass Study. And before joining the European Commission, Thomas studied biology as well as business management, followed by an academic career in molecular biology, biochemistry, and genetics. So thank you very much to be here with us today, Thomas. The floor is yours, so you can take control of the presentation and start.
So thank you very much for the kind introduction and for the invitation to this interesting event. Would you mind to show you the presentation? Then I will say
Sure.
when to switch the slide. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. Just tell me when I need to skip.
Yeah. So I will show you. So the next slide, please. You can go to the next one. I will show you a little bit about European Thermal Energy Storage, RNI. So our thoughts and what we do from DG RTD in this, and of course introduce to the overall relevant policy context. I would like to start with the European Green Deal, with the main priority in the area of the past Commission, with the ambition, as you know, to become climate neutral by 2050, and this in really in the context of socio-economic sustainability, by protecting human life, animal plants, and by cutting pollution, and to help companies become world leaders in clean products and technologies. And also importantly, and I think also relevant for your technologies, the same social competitive. So social sustainability is also very important. Now, there were a series of important packages in the past year. I would like to mention, of course, the Fit for 55 package, which you see on the right side is really working together of different initiatives, regulations, and directives, namely, for example, the Renewable Energy Directive, but I think also the Energy System Integration Policy, which is very relevant also if we look at storage. Then, of course, Repower EU as the measure to boost further renewables to become independent of Russian oil and gas. Also, the revision of the EU electricity market design, and lately the Net Zero Industry Act. If you go to the, and I will come to this one and the recommendation of energy storage in a second. If you go to the next slide, please. So the Net Zero Industry Act has at its core to simplify the regulatory framework on net zero technologies. I think this is also very important in the context of your webinar today, and to help scaling up the manufacturing of net zero technologies, and with the aim to achieve a competitive and resilient European net zero or clean energy technologies industry. Next slide, please. Here, this encompasses in particular also the products, components, and machinery necessary for the manufacturing of net zero technologies. and a variety of technologies very relevant for you. Battery storage technologies are mentioned here, as well as heat pumps and geothermal energy technologies, and energy system related energy efficiency technologies, including heat grid technologies. Now we understand that we need, of course, to follow a value chain approach here, and that's why also skills are really seen as a very important horizontal enabler and also necessity along clean energy technology value chains. And therefore, Net Zero Industry Academies will help to enhance skills. If you go next slide, please. Now on the Commission recommendation from 2023 on energy storage, they reinforce once more the important role they have for decarbonized and secure EU energy system, and really provide a guidance to member states how to boost this further by assessing capacity needs, removing barriers, establishing cost-effective processes, accelerate the deployment of storage technologies, and we need, of course, also data in this respect. And this also advocates for research innovation in this area. And on the EU side, a new initiative can play an important role in facilitating the deployment and also in addressing specific barriers for distributed flexible sources, including energy storage. The next slide, please. Now coming to the political priorities of President-elect von der Leyen. The very important message is that the European Commission plans, or the next Commission plans to further implement the goals set in the European Green Deal. So this is very important. The Green Deal remains active. And then there is, of course, a variety of important initiatives or chapters of initiatives. One regarding for energy is importantly a new European prosperity plan, which has the ambition to make business easier and deepen the single market, build a clean industrial deal to decarbonize and bring down energy prices. So energy is really core, as well as R&I is important at the heart of our economy. And the same goes hand in hand, of course, with digital technologies and importantly, sustainable competitiveness. So as it's in the spirit of the Green Deal, here we talk about three-dimensional sustainability, and I mentioned already the skills. So this is also a very important area of initiative. And next slide, please. Now what we have as policy framework at the European level, we have the SET plan, the European Strategic Energy Technology Plan, where the European Commission teams up with member states and industry to really align research priorities to the European goals. And there was a revision of the SET plan recently, which also put it really as an action group as an expert group under the Net Zero Industry Act. So it is very much linked to competitiveness and also to giving a strategic guidance. So there are several areas where we have key actions which are, I think, relevant for this topic, a whole area on energy systems, as well as, of course, energy efficiency, and then a variety of other set of renewables. So invite stakeholders to look into the SET plan further to find information there. Thank you. Next slide, please. You can go to the next slide, please. So on Horizon Europe, the current research innovation framework running until 27. As many of you might know, this is a three-pillar structure where we have in Pillar 1 support of excellent science. Then in Pillar 3, we have support of innovation with the EIC, for example, a lot for startups and in this area, and to bring really technologies to market. And in Pillar 2, the societal challenges are addressed. And here in the cluster on climate, energy, mobility is where energy storage is anchored. If you go to the next slide, please. And importantly, I put this slide because the overall vision of Horizon Europe is to contribute to sustainable development goals. And I think it's always important to reflect that even so we have a specific SDG on energy, SDG 7, there's an interaction with a variety of sustainable development goals. We deal with things like energy poverty, but also energy technologies can interact with a variety of SDGs and positively support them. So I think this is a vision research innovation should have in that area. Next slide, please. Also, just to flag how Horizon Europe has really engaged its efforts to contribute to Repower EU. So to lower the dependence of Russian gas and oil, and at the same time to boost up renewables technologies. And you see here that better and smarter energy storage solutions are really an important element contributing to the acceleration of the rollout of renewables and to diversifying energy supply. Next slide. Now here, this is a selected overview of what we have as projects in thermal energy storage. Apology if somebody doesn't find it. So here, but I put the US organizers of the project participating is important action and innovation action on thermal energy storage solutions. What we have also projects in more open topics, and we have really dedicated topics to storage technologies, both on the electricity side, but also on the thermal side. Next slide, please. One example I put here, this is the research and innovation action, next generation of renewable energy technologies, where you have, of course, an open topic not specific to thermal storage. But if you look at I put here the project outcomes, they're nevertheless very relevant, and that's why the respective projects were, of course, selective, because we are talking a bigger picture. So this is to break through and to have really game-changing renewable energy technologies and benefits, knowledge bases, and contribute to RNI and to create a European solid innovation base. So this was a research innovation action. And next slide, please. Applicable to the projects present here today. Thermal energy storage solutions, the innovation action. Once, of course, to develop, demonstrate novel modular, compact, high-performance thermal energy storage solutions with important contributions to specific objectives as stated here. And they also refer to, of course, really improving and demonstrating systems beyond the state-of-the-art technologies, and here specifically also, I think, used for domestic applications and also for the period set. So I think it's important to, if you look at our work program, it's really, the portfolio we have is very actual in respect of our policy goals. So we are looking forward to get results and, of course, of the interest of the sectors in future action if they might come. So as you know, we prepared a work program for the coming year. So please stay tuned for announcement in this respect. Next slide, please. And thank you for your attention. And since I went very fast through it, there are also my contact details. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas, for this comprehensive overview. I hope you will be able to stay with us for the question and answer session, because I'm pretty sure several questions will be right for you.
Yes.
So thank you again, and I will go on. So for our second presentation of Guillermo. Guillermo Andres Nieto is a mechanical engineer currently working as a research engineer and project coordinator at Veolia, Spain. Leveraging his experience participating in European projects of different areas of expertise, and is currently the project coordinator of ThumbsUp project, whose main aim is the development and demonstration of innovative thermal energy storage solution. So thank you to be here, Guillermo. As I see, you are ready to come for the presentation, so you can start. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Julia, for the nice introduction. And thank you also, Sofia, for preparing all of this, and Thomas for this interesting overview, no? Let me say, from the European Commission point of view on the panorama in terms of how things are getting done now in Europe regarding the thermal energy storage. Well, I think I can directly, control this, so perfect. Well, as Julia introduced, I'm Guillermo Andres Nieto from Veolia, Spain. Actually, I'm the project coordinator of ThumbsUp project, one of these four amazing projects that currently conforms the thermal energy storage cluster that is organizing this webinar. So initially, during the following minutes, I will do a presentation, maybe more linked to the real installation or integration in the buildings of this kind of technologies related to thermal energy storage. Okay, and considering that we are on time, maybe I can stop a bit more into some details of the slides. Okay, so I will. I think there is. We lack a slide, but no, don't worry. It's here. So first of all, I will briefly introduce both ThumbsUp and Veolia as the project coordinator of the project, going then through the different constraints that should be taken into consideration with when talking about the thermal energy storage integration. Briefly talking about which is the situation, no? Let me say at an European Union level, and then going more specifically to one specific example that could be, for example, the one in Spain. Okay. So first of all, I guess that most of you already know the project, but ThumbsUp stands for Thermal Energy Storage Solutions to optimally manage buildings and unlock the grid balancing and flexibility potential. Okay, Julia already briefly introduced the project, but just to complement it, this project started in January 2023 and will last 4 years until December 2026. The consortium is composed by 21 organizations along the 9 different countries in Europe, and it's conformed by from large private companies, as it's the situation of Veolia, also small and medium enterprises, but key universities and technological centers along the whole Europe. So we consider our our slogan, no, balancing the grid, one building at a time, and we are now in what can be considered the noon of the project, no, completely immersed between this transition between the first phase and the second phase of the project, and now starting with the final preparations for the validation and demonstration campaign. So just in order to again introduce the topic on the thermal energy storage, in the project we are developing two different thermal energy storages, the fragless and the shortest, the first one based in PCM technologies, and the second one, the shortest, based in sorption based technologies. Okay, so just a couple of words. As Veolia, as the project coordinator of ThumbsUp, we are a multinational company which has presence in the 5 continents of the world. I think that we are now 220,000 employees around the whole world, and we consider our mission resourcing the world. We design and deploy solutions for water waste and energy management. Also following, let me say, 3 main objectives: improving access to resources, but also preserving and replenishing them. So let's go directly through the key topic of this presentation, which is at the end of the day, the constraints that can be found when talking on a potential application of thermal energy storage. But before talking about thermal energy storage more specifically, I think it's pretty interesting to think about innovative technologies themselves. Okay, because at the end of the day, there are some common challenges that will be necessary to be faced when we are talking about putting technology that is under development from the laboratory to the market. Not specifically the thermal energy storage, but always that we are working with an innovative technology, no? And to understand this, I think it's pretty interesting to do several questions to ourselves regarding the technology we are talking about, no? First of all, what is it? I mean, what's the technology that is under development in our project? Maybe this question can seem easy to be resolved, no? But at the end of the day, it's key to have a thorough understanding on not only which is the application of our technology and what is the technology itself, but also what are the different, or which are the different components of our technology, and which fields could be of interest to these kind of components, not only for the overall technology itself, but also for the different parts of the technology, no? On the other hand, another pretty important question will be, is the concept of what we are developing now similar to something that already exists? This question is key to understand if there is some work that has been already done in terms of studying its potential marketability, the legislation framework along Europe, or maybe in a specific country. No? And last but not least, are there any regulations that are currently covering this concept, no? Either completely or partially, because at the end of the day, as we have seen, maybe there is not a specific legislation for that, but there are for the different components that affect or directly affect the innovation itself, no? So going through the concept of thermal energy storage as and following this idea of asking ourselves these kind of questions, we must ask ourselves, what is thermal energy storage, no? At the end of the day, because maybe we can of course think on the concept from the easiest routes, no? Because when we are talking about thermal energy storage, we are storing energy, but this is not electrical energy. And this is pretty important because there are a lot of legislations, regulations, guidelines in terms of storing electricity or electric energy, but not when talking about thermal storage, okay? So when we are talking about thermal energy storage, we are storing thermal storage, let me say, although it's redundant. So we are storing thermal storage independently that it's on a higher temperature or lower temperature, depending on the application, if it's dedicated to heating or cooling or whatever, and also independently of the technology or the base of the technology itself. In this project, as we have seen, we are talking about PCM or sorption-based technologies, but independently of them, the main purpose or the main application is remains the same. No? So summarizing it, we are storing energy, but not electric energy. So another key important point to be taken into consideration is that we are not talking about energy generation facility themselves. No? We are talking about storing energy, but an important again point to consider is that or independently that they cannot be considered that as energy generation facilities, we can connect them to the primary energy grids, at least the ones that we are developing in ThumbsUp. So this, in terms of legislation or regulation, will be important. Also, another key point, and more specifically in ThumbsUp, because we are talking about installing this kind of technologies and integrating them into the residential sector. These technologies must be easily integrable in buildings. So they must ensure the safety of the tenants, because these kind of technologies will be installed near to them. No. So all in all, and considering all of these questions and concepts, let's ask ourselves what kind of regulations or legislation should be taken into consideration when trying to put these kind of technologies into the market. No, so we should think on different fields, which are at the end of the day summarized in this slide. We will need to take into consideration the thermal and electric facilities, but also buildings, and more specifically for this project, for example, the residential buildings. We will need to take into consideration also those directives or legislations that cover the energy performance, the domestic hot water handling, but also the hazardous substances and chemical restrictions, and health and safety constraints, for example, etc. I mean, because at the end of the day, the different fields that could be of interest can be more, but let me say that the most important ones will be these ones. No? So last, again, but not least, one really key aspect when talking about the legislation and regulation. Independently that there are existing directives or regulations in an European Union level, we have to take into consideration this relation among the European Union level and the country level and national legislation, no? Because at the end of the day, independently that there is an existing framework in an European Union level, each member state along the European Union implement their own legislations. No? So it's more important than ever to have this thorough understanding and this to deploy this thorough study country by country in order to understand the different regulations that should be considered for this specific subject. No? So let's put some specific examples on this from an European Union view to a specific example of a country. No? When we talk on an European Union level, we will find several directives and regulations that are of interest, considering the fields that have been aforementioned in the previous slide. No, for example, when we talk about the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, this legislation covers and offers, let me say, minimum requirements for energy performance, independently that if we are talking about buildings or their technical systems. No? It also provides guidelines in order to design, install, and commission this kind of technologies. And when I say this kind of technologies, I'm not talking about thermal energy storage, but this kind of facilities that are installed in the buildings that could be somehow related to the energy storage, but not only. Okay. It also mandates to have a proper sizing of this kind of technologies, adapting as far as possible the size to the heat demand of the buildings themselves, and covers let's say the 3 different applications that we are covering in the ThumbsUp project: the heating, the cooling, and domestic hot water systems, and specifically in the residential buildings. No? Another key point, as we presented before, it's about the wellness and hygiene requirements. This is also covered by this directive. Okay. Apart from this directive, we can find, for example, the eco design, the low voltage directive, the machinery one, the pressure equipment directive, that all of these ones somehow cover different parts or different aspects of the installation or the design of this kind of technologies, but also the electromagnetic compatibility directive, the drinking water directive, pretty important if we are thinking about an application on domestic hot water of this kind of technologies, but also, for example, another completely different field, the restriction of hazardous substances, but also the registration, evaluation, authorization, and restrictions of chemical regulation. Last but not least, energy efficiency, energy labeling, and of course, general product safety directive. Okay, so this can be more or less the panorama that we can find in the European Union. Again, not only these ones, but these ones can be considered as at least one of the most important to be taken into consideration. Well, as said before, independently that we already know about more or less the framework in an European Union level, now it's key to understand which are the similarities or the differences when thinking about a specific application in one country, no? Because these directives, this legislation are necessary to be implemented at the end of the day by the national legislation. No, so if we focus to put an example in the case of Spain, there are 2 main legislations, no, that or regulations that will be necessary to be taken into consideration when talking about these fields that have been presented. The Reglamento de Instalaciones Térmicas en los Edificios, the RITE in Spain, covers the vast majority of the points that have been presented in the previous slides. Let's say it poses different requirements depending on the nominal thermal power that it is installed in the building. Okay, I mean it's not the same to be talking about a facility of 100 kilowatt or 1,000 kilowatts than talking about a facility of 15 kilowatts. No, it's pretty different and it requires different things. It also explains, let me say, or poses the requirements in terms of maintenance, usage and inspection, the energy efficiency requirements of these kind of facilities, the renewable energy necessary to be provided by these newly installed technologies, waste handling, wellness and hygiene, as we saw in the previous slide for the European Union, security and environmental impact. Okay. Apart from this important regulation in Spain, another key aspect to consider, at least for our technology is everything that is related to the electrical grid. Okay, at the end of the day, our thermal energy storage solutions are connected directly connected to the grid, apart from the thermal facilities of the building. So it's pretty important to have a thorough understanding of how things are working in the country in terms of electrical regulation, no, or legislation. In Spain, we have the Reglamento Electrotécnico para Baja Tensión, the REBT, which regulates or which poses different requirements again, as it happened with the RITE, for the different facilities we are talking about. No? And in this case, it differentiates among the low and high voltage facilities with different requirements for each of them. No? It's true that there is no differentiation between tertiary and residential buildings in this specific legislation, and it basically covers all of these facilities that somehow generate, distribute, or consume electricity in this kind of buildings. Okay. Last but not least, talking about this framework that is of interest to the project. In one of the objectives of our project of ThumbsUp is basically to enhance the flexibility with the electrical grid. Okay, so it's pretty interesting to have a dedicated study on the electricity prices regulation of the countries that will be of interest for the project. No, so as a specific example, in Spain and Portugal, the electricity prices are regulated by the OMIE, which fixes the price per kilowatt hour on a daily basis. No? So taking that into consideration, we can advance on thinking about when will it be more interesting to charge the batteries, discharge the batteries, and to manage this idea of grid flexibility. Okay. So all in all, and considering all that has been presented in the previous slides, at the end of the day, we can conclude that the situation in all the different countries along Europe faces similar challenges, independently that if we are in Spain, we are in Italy, or we are in Ireland. let me say, we will need to face more or less the same situation. At the end of the day, independently that we have legislations or directives in an European Union level, each country dedicates their own legislations to govern the different fields we are talking about, no? And their requirements may vary. They can be more or less exigent, no? Let me say, and it's important to understand how they work. At the end, there is a clear necessity, of course, of having a good understanding of these regulations and legislations, not only in an European Union level, but in a specific country level in which we are aiming to demonstrate this kind of technologies or to put them into the market, not only for the thermal energy storage, but talking about these innovative technologies themselves. No? But if we focus on the thermal energy storage, we have to take into consideration that there is no specific regulations currently worded for their implementation. So it's more important than ever to understand the different components of the batteries and the different fields that could be of interest for maybe not the technology itself, but the different components that conform the technology and how this will be implemented in order to understand the different legislations that could be useful or that must be somehow followed at the time of putting them into the market and the demonstrations campaigns. So well, that will be initially all from my side. I guess we will continue now with Carla, and at the end of the webinar, I will be more than pleased to solve any doubts that may arise. Thank you.
Thank you, Guillermo. Thank you very much for clearly underlining the relevance of the challenges that are still be faced in the application of thermal energy storage. As you said, we will go deeper into this topic at the end of our webinar in the discussion session. And now let's go on with our last but not least presentation from Carla Zambrano. Carla holds a PhD in law and a Master of Law in Advocacy and one in secondary education. She held a pre-doctoral and postdoctoral scholarship from the Minister of Science and University in Spain and is currently carrying out legal research as external expert in the Institute of Information and Communication Technology of University Politécnica de Valencia. She has been also professor of law in the Universidad Internacional de La Rioja, where she taught in subject linked to the human rights and international environmental law. Carla also has been appointed as an EU Climate Pact ambassador by the European Commission, and as part of her professional career, she was practicing lawyer at the Valencia Bar Association. So really, thank you to be here with us again. It's not the first time for Carla to collaborate with us, and I don't want to say more. So feel free to take control of the presentation. Of the presentation. The floor is yours. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Julia. And thank you to the European Heat Pump Association for inviting me. And again, it's a great pleasure to be here and share some ideas that I have been developing within my collaboration of ECHO. And obviously, I'm very, 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 very glad to be here and talk about energy poverty. Yeah, my ideas. The title of this presentation is Why is TES important to prevent energy poverty? Because when we are thinking about solutions in this energy transition, we have to consider this kind of EU regulation, but not also the EU regulation. We have a hierarchy in the law. So let me start with some main ideas and main content that I have prepared for this presentation. Firstly, we are going to talk about some kind of preliminary considerations, and then we are going to go ahead to the interactions between energy poverty and energy transition, because they are intersected issues that we have to consider, and we have to talk about human rights and fundamental rights. And then we are gonna go a little bit in depth about thermal energy storage as a need for this energy transition, and why it's in line with energy poverty as a fundamental right. So continuing with this, we have to consider this kind of hierarchy that I was commenting. And thank you very much, Guillermo, because you have go a little bit in depth with the treatment of the European law, distinguishing between the directives and regulations, and telling us about the harmonization and the need of harmonization that we have to consider in the EU member states. So thank you very much for advancing this, because it's very fluent for me. Okay, so what we have to consider right now is that we have in the middle of a climate crisis, a climate emergency, and we have to take some kind of solutions attached to this climate emergency. And this is the landscape that we have in the middle of the law. So the law acts as the regulation, act as a moderator of these solutions, because maybe the solutions are not in line with the law, and we have to consider proper solutions in this kind of pyramid. So in the international law, we have some kind of conventions, agreements that treat energy poverty as a human right, okay? When we are thinking about climate crisis and energy and some kind of solutions, we have to consider that the energy is a human right, because it's a necessity. It's a necessity for people to live. We need the energy for everything right now, and even for the minimal things that we use, even for charge a mobile phone. So we need energy for everything, for cool our buildings, for everything in our lives. So this is a fundamental right that is emerging in the regulatory landscape and the international law. So it's in line of several conventions and agreements that have been adopted by the European Union in the whole sense, and they are implemented in the European regulations. So taking into account this pyramid, then we have to consider that we have the European law as well. And then we have the domestic law. So it's like a multi-level norms that we have to consider when we plan some kind of solutions attached to energy, as TES, as ECHO in this case, in the project that I'm collaborating right now. So leaving apart the international law, because it's a very big framework attached of human rights. So what we have to consider, and what because of because of this webinar is more in line with the EU regulations, let's gonna see how are the interactions between energy poverty and energy transition, because they are merged, they are intersected. And we have some kind of original law that it's another kind of distinction inside of the framework of the EU. We have original law, the treaties of the European Union, and we have the law made by the institution as the European Parliament, approved by the Council, and that are prepared for the European Commission. So we have this kind of basis, legal basis, in the Treaty of Functioning of the European Law. So we have the Article 194 that states that the energy is a shared competence between EU member states and the EU. So that's the reason why Guillermo told us recently that there's a problem, there's a big difficulty, because we need some kind of harmonization between the member states and how the directives and obviously all the regulations are applied directly to the EU member states, but not the directives. And in energy, we have a lot of directives. And in energy efficiency, we have a lot of frameworks. So each member state has the right to decide the conditions for exploiting its own energy resources. And this seems like a difficulty for each project, because when we are talking about consortiums, we are thinking about different legal regimes of Belgium, maybe of Spain, or different treatment with common elements established by the directives in France, maybe. But obviously, they are not well treated in the EU member states. There's no harmonization in this sense. So we have to consider this as the first thing of all. Then going a little bit down about the main aims of the EU energy policy in this article, it says that ensure the security of energy supply and promote energy efficiency and energy saving. So that means that it's in line with the security of energy that the people need, and it is very linked with the fundamental rights. And we have another kind of area of knowledge of law, which is the fundamental rights, the Charter of the Fundamental Rights of the European Union. So we have like two areas of knowledge intersected right now: the energy transition and the climate and energy security for one side, and then another side. In another side, we have the treatment of fundamental rights as energy poverty. And why is this important? Because it is stated in one of our original treaty as the Treaty of Functioning of the European Union. So there is the connection. Then we have another kind of regulation, the regulation on the governance of energy union and the climate action. We right now have this regulation as the ensuring that it aims to ensure that the European Union's energy union strategy is implemented in coordinated and coherent manner across its 5 dimensions. Firstly, decarbonization, energy efficiency, energy security, internal energy market, research, innovation, and competitiveness. And everything is in line with the aims of ECO right now. Then the Article 33D of this regulation on the governance of energy union and climate action states concretely that the integrated national energy and climate plans that are that are these plans to go to the that are the plans programmed by the European Union member states in order to go to achieve the climate neutrality achieves the climate neutrality of the European Green Deal, it says that these plans shall consist of a description of the current situation of these 5 dimensions, and it shall to assess the number of households in energy poverty, taking into account the necessary domestic energy services needing to guarantee basic standards of living. So we have right now the legal link for develop this kind of solution that I was mentioning in the first slide. So we have the necessity to guarantee and to assess the number of households in energy poverty. So this is a regulation, and this is applicable to all the EU member states. This is a core, the nucleus of implementation of the European Union law. In line with the fundamental rights that have been considered by the European Union Charter of Fundamental Rights. And it says that this INECP have to be in line with the relevant national context, with the social policy and other policies. That's the reason why Guillermo says that when we are developing some kind of energy solutions, we have to consider not only the energy directives about the energy transition, but we have also considered the energy efficiency for the buildings. And obviously, when we prepare this kind of solution, we have to talk about consumers. And consumers are well protected in the European Union. So this is another part of the regulations that we have to explore, because there are a lot of branches merged in one project, for example, in ECO. And that's the reason why it's necessary to assess all the EU regulations, but also all the policies of the EU member states, because we have to consider what is harmonized when we are talking about directives. Not in the case of regulations, because they are applicable and are implemented directly in the domestic legislation. But we have to know how is these directives, how are these directives being implemented in the European Union member states. That's the reason why it's very important to make a legal assessment, as ECHO has initiated, not obviously not considering the domestic legislations of all the EU member states, because it's maybe a huge legal project itself apart, but obviously taking into account maybe the connections between all the EU member states legal systems. So that's a reason why it's necessary to consider the common elements between the energy transition legislation and how this could be implemented with fundamental rights, because it's the legal manner to protect our project and obviously go and achieve the climate goals prepared by the European Green Deal and the Fit for 55. So there is a strong connection between several fundamental rights of the Charter of the Fundamental Rights of the European Union and the risk of energy poverty if we do not adapt the necessary solutions in this area. For example, human dignity, Article 1, right of life, right of integrity of the person, prohibition of touching unhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. Why I am saying this? Because there's a lot of climate litigations merging and climate trials that are receiving by the European Union Court and the European Court of Human Rights right now by individuals. And in this case, for example, the last trial of the Klimaserien case told us and lead and told us that the energy transition is necessary to be connected with the fundamental rights in order to protect more collectives and to protect in order to protect the population. So that's the reason why when we are thinking about solution of energy transition, we cannot leave the fundamental rights apart. This is the legal manner to protect our project, and obviously taking into account that this could be known as a common interested project for the European Union. This could be like the legal manner to prepare a very good project and legal protected with the fundamental rights and the energy transition normative. Then what happened in this case for TES as a need for energy transition, and taking all the context and taking all the frameworks that we are right now exploring in a brief manner, we have to consider that thermal energy storage TES is a technology that reserves some thermal energy by heating or cooling a storage medium and then uses the stored energy later. So the need to achieve climate neutrality objectives in the key sectors such as energy or industry makes ECO an ideal project in the face of the climate crisis by one side, and to prevent energy poverty and protect the population. So this could be treated as a common interested project for the European Union and to achieve the Fit for 55 and obviously fulfill the European Green Deal, the Paris Agreement, and all the conventions and all the fundamental rights that have been implemented, all the fundamental rights treaties or convention that have been implemented by the European Union. So we have to think about solutions in conclusion, because we are finishing with this with some ideas that we have thinking about solutions. I cannot skip right now. Okay, so we can think about solutions viable according to the analysis of not only European law, but also we can consider the international normative and obviously considering the multi-level scale that we have in the regulatory scenario. So what happens with ECO? ECO enjoys a factual justification right now, and the main problem of ECO could be maybe the harmonization between the EU member states, but it's not a thing that we can control, but we can assess. And it's necessary to assess because it says it's the manner to consider how can we protect our project and how could it be in line with the EU goals in climate goals. So and the second thing that I want to remark is that there is an existing interaction between energy poverty, as we can see in the regulation, and this is the direct applicable to the EU, to the whole EU member states, and the energy transition that has some kind of directives and some kind of regulations. And all the INCP plans shall consider to assess this kind of energy poverty. How is the population acting in this? How is protected by the European Union member states in this energy transition period? Okay, and finally, ECO could help them meet at least of 3 of the 5 dimensions. I think that maybe of the regulation of energy union and climate action. And this kind of progressive evaluations of the development and the evolution of the standards that underpin and support the implementation of the project are necessary and desirable in order to make checks continuously if there is an infringement of fundamental rights. Okay, so thank you very much, because it's very difficult to explain this. And thank you very much for attending and for your attention. If you want to make some kind of question, I will be delighted to answer it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carla. Thanks to you. It's really relevant to have an overview on the link between energy transition, energy poverty, and fundamental right. I think it's a really interesting topic that is not really often addressed. So thank you for your presentation and to be here with us for the panel discussion. I encourage all the participants to write down the question you may have for all the speakers. Please, if you can, add the name of the speaker you're addressing the question to, so it's easier for them. But if also Guillermo and Thomas would like to turn on your camera or microphone, I will start with some questions. Maybe the first for Thomas, so we go backwards. Thomas, if you could just do a short overview of what is the role of research and innovation for moving energy storage solution ahead in this moment?
Yes, thank you very much for the good question. I mean, as I tried to say in my talk, and I'm pleased that also the other speakers picked this actually up. I mean, research innovation is there to address challenges, and indeed, it's a common challenge between our shared competence between European Union and member states. So I think, in particular on this regulatory part, I think it's important that this project really, our I&I project, also determine where issues are, which then can be tabled, which need to be solved in this respect. But in general, for storage, what is the importance for research innovation? I think generally is to improve technology, to get it more cost competitive and also more sustainable. I try to highlight that really, and Carla also mentioned sustainability as an important element. Indeed, our ambitions to have always more sustainable and competitive technology. And I think the European projects in particular have the opportunity, if we think about the collaborative projects, that it's really a good opportunity to team up. Also beyond country borders, and in particular, if there is a situation where regulations might be a bit different between member states, I think it's a very important platform to discuss and to move ahead together. And to close I mean, we are working from low tail up to market uptake, let's say. Our role is also, of course, to feed in innovation to scale up then and deployment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Thomas. And speaking about regulation, that is a topic of today, I have a question for Guillermo. This is that if there is not specific regulation, speaking in concrete, if there is no specific regulation related to thermal energy storage, this means that no legislation must be followed when installing this kind of device.
Well, thank you, Julia. Well, I think it's a pretty interesting question because, as I said in my presentation, at the end of the day, we are talking about innovative technologies. No, so initially we are developing something that is somehow new, maybe not completely, but partially, of course. No, so at the end of the day, first of all, it's pretty important to understand what are we developing, what are we talking about, but also if there is something existing that can be somehow linked to this, or that can be similar, in order to understand if what is governing, no, what is already existing, can be also applied to what we are developing now. So maybe there is not a legislation that overall govern this new device or this new technology, but of course, the different components of this device or the application of this type of devices will count for sure with some kind of legislation, regulation, directive, or even a guideline, maybe not only in an European Union level, but also in a country level, that it's strictly necessary to be followed. No? For example, as I put the example before on the domestic hot water handling, when we are talking about a facility that will somehow work with domestic hot water, independently of the country we are talking about. Every country in Europe has a dedicated legislation on how facilities must work when talking of a water that is capable to be directly drunk by the tenants. No. For example, we are not talking about the energy generation itself. We are talking about storing energy, but at the end of the day, these kind of devices will be installed in the existing facilities, thermal facilities of a building. So the legislations that are governing the thermal facilities of the building will be necessary to be followed in order to comply with the different requirements they are posing. No? So this will be more or less the idea, independently that there is not a specific legislation for thermal energy storage. There are a plethora of different legislations, regulations that must be somehow followed.
Thank you. Thank you for the input, Guillermo. And to answer the person in the chat, yes, you will have access to the slide. I will send you the slide of the speakers right after in the next days, actually, in the next days. And I will go on with a question for Carla now. You talk a lot about the fundamental right and yeah, the link that there is between fundamental right and energy poverty, energy transition. But how can the fundamental right be affected by the energy transition?
Oh yes. Thank you very much for this question, because obviously when we are preparing solutions in this energy transition and in this climate crisis framework, maybe we can consider we must consider these solutions as the protection of several fundamental rights. In this case, for example, in the case of TES, obviously it prevents energy poverty, but also it's gaining class, and it's in line with the protection of the right of life, or the health, as Guillermo said in the intervention. So obviously we have to consider that that the jurisdiction, or maybe the legal issues, are not very concrete, as you can see. They are very broad. They are very wide in this case. So we have to make an interpretation of these solutions as well connected with the climate crisis and with the goals that have been projected by the European Commission. So that's the reason why when we are talking about this energy transition, we have to consider that all the solutions have to be in line with the fundamental rights as well. So there's an intersection very clear and evident in order to protect, obviously, the people and the citizens, because we are not talking about nationalities, but all the population that is living in the EU member states have to be well protected. In other cases, on the contrary, if we do not plan some kind of projects that are in line of the climate goals, we could be maybe making some kind of inaction, or maybe we can receive a complaint from several individuals that have not considered their fundamental rights well protected, because temperatures increase, and there are a lot of problems attached to this climate crisis. So that's a reason why I think that all the solutions have to be in line not only with the energy transition regulations, but also we have to go more in depth with the legal basis, and as well with the fundamental rights.
Sure. Thank you very much for addressing this, Carla. This is a good point to keep in mind constantly. I will go on now reading the question that were already written in the chat during your presentation. The first two for Thomas. I will read it, both of them, so you can reply as you wish. Okay, the first one says that it's nice to see that Europe is going for a single market, but unfortunately there is not what we see today. ZUM in Poland asking for extra test point, and Denmark doing the same with positive list. And he's asking if having the heat pump key mark recognition in all of Europe will not be a solution, could not be a solution. And the second question is regarding the EU funding. So if there is already any info regarding Next Horizon calls opening period.
Thank you very much for the questions. I think the first is in the spirit what I said already previous in my general remarks, that in this area of shared competence, of course, the role of European projects can be to really spell out issues which exist and then to table also proposals for solutions which we can look at. So this is really an important role, I think, also for the projects to really signal where issues are and from which we can learn for the future. On the second one, unfortunately, I have no specific date, but this is really forthcoming, so please stay tuned, and we will also organize info days in this respect on where you will then have more information on the future topics. So here already an invitation to participate in those events. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas, for also this reminder to keep following the Commission webinar. They are always super useful for us that need to work with new calls. And I have another question written in the chat for Guillermo right now. It's quite long, so have patience for me. The question is, in your presentation, you emphasize that the main difference between thermal storage and regular energy storage batteries considered in different policies is that thermal is not electricity. So, in the purpose of supporting the grid network, the main function of thermal storage will likely to be to increase demand or shift electricity consumption related to heating sector to other time of the day year. Are you aware of any specific flexibility market already tested or planned in which thermal storage developer private individual could earn revenue for providing flexibility through thermal storage?
Okay, thank you, Julia. And of course, a really, really interesting question. Well, as said before, the panorama that we are facing is completely different depending on the country we are focusing on. No, so at the end of the day, in our project, we have a dedicated partner whose main role, no, it's basically to not only to model how this kind of technologies are working with not only with the electrical grid, because let's say we have two partners whose main role is one, to understand how these exchanges happens between the different buildings, the segregated buildings, and the grid itself, the electrical grid itself, no. But another partner whose main objective in the project is to do the same, but with the thermal networks, no. Because at the end of the day, if we are talking, for example, on thermal networks, we can find some countries that already have a really strong network in terms of thermal district heatings and so on, and also, of course, the related legislations or regulations and the thermal markets, as it happens, for example, in the northern countries in Europe. And at the end of the day, for example, one of the demo sites of the ThumbsUp project is in Sweden, in Gothenburg, and it's connected to a district heating network, and we will be able to thoroughly study how these exchanges with the thermal market are possible to be done, considering the prices and so on. No, but at the end of the day, it happens exactly the same with the electrical part. No, let me say the electrical part or the electricity market is more maybe not present. The present is not the more properly word, but we are more accustomed to this kind of electricity markets or of prosumerism, no, with our generation in our buildings via our PV facilities and so on. Then installing this kind of thermal energy storages will, of course, enhance the flexibility with the grid, and so be taken into consideration. But at the end of the day, when talking about open markets on this, if we talk about the electricity markets, we are just focusing on how or when we consume electricity in our houses. No, when installing this kind of thermal energy storage, we will be able to decide on when we can take advantage of, for example, lower tariffs, but also to put the decision on the table on using additional energy from the photovoltaic when we have excesses. No, so there are ongoing initiatives in terms of electricity markets integration of this kind of products. The point is that this is still on its beginnings. No, so there is a lot of investigation, no, let me say, to be done by now, and maybe we are still in a early part of the project to have dedicated results or further conclusions to be made in terms of this. But of course, in a year from now, or a year and a half, more or less, we will be able to have more concrete information for this kind of questions. Okay.
Thank you, Guillermo, for this insight. Thank you very much. And talking about, yeah, we talk in this way about the market impact, the economic impact of TES solution. But so going back to Carla, is there is possible, and if yes, how, for the EU to prevent energy poverty through thermal energy storage solution and technologies?
Good question, Julia. In fact, yeah, actually, possible. I think that maybe each solution that aims to protect and that is in line with climate goals, it's adopted by the European Union and considered by the European Union as in line with the regulations, could prevent energy poverty and obviously protect more fundamental rights in this sense. So the problem is, again, that the legislation is very wide and it could be interpreted by the courts. So in this case, maybe the key issue could be that maybe harmonize all the or maybe better to reform and to adapt all the directives and become them into regulations that could be more applicable to the European Union member states, because there's a differentiation. There could be a differentiation between the solutions adopted by each member state. So maybe the harmonization and converting the directives into regulations could be a good decision in order to consider TES as maybe a great solution and in line with the prevention of energy poverty. So this maybe could be a better idea to better harmonize legislation, and obviously considering concreting the technologies, because this is in continued development. So technologies, could be considered as in line, but we need some kind of stabilization to invest in this kind of solutions, and we have the necessity to invest in better solutions and solutions in line with the goals of the European Green Deal, and obviously that have this kind of that are I don't know how to explain it, that could be well covered by legal regulations. That's it. It's very difficult because we are thinking about all the time in other two areas of knowledge, and yeah, it's very difficult to explain it. So that's it. Thank you.
Carla, yeah, I think the common point of everyone is that there is still a lot to be done, but a lot of positivity for the future.
Yeah. Okay. It's a lot of work, and we hope that the European Commission is working in this kind of legal solutions and adapting the regulation, but obviously it's not a good time, right now, up to date. We are living difficult moments for our European Union, and we should be more in a unite sense, maybe.
Thank you very much. Going back to the funding of the European Union, of the European Commission, so there are two different questions that are related to funding. They are addressing to no one specifically, so everyone who would like to answer this. One is pretty specific and said if someone, as a company, that produce component for residential heat pump have run internal technology project around thermal energy storage and how to make residential heat pump more affordable, have possibility to shave electricity peaks and use low tariff to store energy for shaving peaks, produce DHWU without Legionella risk. How that company can involve in this project partner eventually get further funding? And the other question, again about funding, is about if there are any funding opportunity for low TRL technologies, such as the integration of high temperature heat pump and thermochemical energy storage system for industrial processes or energy networks.
Yeah, I think I can pick. I presented before one example about a low TRL topic, which is also generally more open. And with this, simply again, the invitation to look at our funding opportunities when they will be tabled.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, from my side, just to complement what Thomas introduced, I guess that the first question is more related to how a company or a partner is able to somehow be part of a project funded by the European Commission, if I understood it properly. So at the end of the day, I think it's more easy. It's relatively easy to answer this. Maybe it's more proper from the European to do it from the European Commission side, but from our side, I will say. From an European project point of view, the most important thing is to have an idea. No? If you have an idea of a project that could somehow work, then the second step is to understand the different partners that will be of interest to go with, because at the end of the day, we have pretty different roles in a European project, which can be more related to the technology development itself, but or maybe more related to the marketability aspects of the product. So first of all, to have the idea. Second, to find which partners will be of interest to collaborate with, and then again, or of course, to understand which goal will be more interesting to or could fit the most the idea of the project, no? Which is more aligned with the idea of the project, and prepare a proposal, submit it, and hope to have the best punctuation in order to get approved. No? So I will say I guess that was the question, and I hope the answer can somehow help to it.
Maybe to complement, Guillermo, thank you very much. I think what you said. I think the info days and also other matchmaking events are a good opportunity also, and this European events in the area to, if you are looking for partner to team up, we are of course on our side cannot help you to do that, but I think there are possibilities to reach out and to know out in the community, also in some areas the e-tips and other platforms where you can exchange information and build common ideas, which then can lead to proposals.
Yeah, thank you very much, both Thomas and Guillermo, to again underline this. And maybe we have time for a last question. That is for Guillermo again, and maybe a little bit more technical. We can say is how good is TES for hot country and for building air conditioning, and if you have any commercial, do you know about any commercial success in this space, and who will be a good contact for the person who is asking about to talk about this?
Okay, thank you for the question, Julia. Well, of course, let me say we are not reinventing the wheel. No, thermal energy storage exists. I mean, it exists. The point is that there are a plethora of different points that must be improved. No, for example, the existing solutions on thermal energy storage are pretty expensive. They are designed specifically for the location or application that that will be used. No, so this of course has a direct impact on the final price or the final amount of that costs the technology itself. The existing thermal energy storage solutions usually use some kind of hazardous or corrosive materials, and this is pretty important because at the end of the day we have to take into consideration not only the legislation part, which will have a pretty important role on this, but also thinking about the circularity of the life of the thermal energy storages themselves, and what happens at the end of the life of the product. No, so again, we are not reinventing the wheel. The thermal energy storage exists, but we have to deal with these different aspects that must be improved. No, also thinking about the energy performance, this has to be improved, the energy density, and so on. So this is actually one of the shared common objectives of the 4 projects that are funded under this thermal energy storage cluster. No. I know that there are existing companies that are currently producing this kind of products. Depending also on the technology that we are talking about, because it depends. So if we are talking about the thermal energy storage, which is based on PCM solutions, for example, because we can talk about the PCM producer widely known as Can Be Plus, for example, but we can talk about a company whose main aim is to manufacture this kind of technologies, which can be HYSTORE, for example, no? In Italy. But again, it depends on the technology we are talking about, because if we go to another different scenario, which could be, for example, sorption-based technologies, we have really strong or important companies as sorption technologies that could be as the one on the PCM side, which is HYSTORE. Sorption is more related to this kind of technologies in terms of thermochemical storage devices. Just to put a couple of examples on them.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Guillermo, but thank you also to Carla and Thomas. Since we are running out of time, I would like to close this session, and thank you both for the presentation and for your availability during this panel discussion. I hope it was really interesting for everyone else as it has been for me. Thank you for your participation here again. I hope, and I'm pretty sure there will be occasion to collaborate again in the future. I will take these other 2 minutes that we have to remember you all to follow our project, HECO, Bestorage, HYSTORE, and ThumbsUp, both on the social media, on the website, and to register to our newsletter. And also remember to follow EHPA so you can be aware of other events and similar webinars that we will promote for other EU-funded projects and not only. Thank you again to all the participants, to Sophia, my colleague who organized the event, and to the speaker to be our guest today. Thank you. And have a nice day.
Thank you so much for organizing this, Julia. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, girls.
Thank
So
you.
lovely.
Bye-bye.
Great event. Bye.